Do you want me to post on Instagram a survey? The one we talked about? Like, should Marshall put his shoes back on?
Yeah.
Should I post that?
I don't mind that. Yeah, I think it would be interesting to get everybody giving their opinion.
Okay.
I'm interested. I'm so proud.
Okay.
You know, you used my hand as a model, and those drawings look great. You were going to use my feet as a model, and I remember showing you my feet, and you said, yeah, maybe we'll do that.
Dude.
But you never did.
Your hands are like a 10.
Yeah.
It's hard for every part of your body to be at that level.
Yeah, well. So my feet are what? Like, what are they? 6, 7,
2,
5? 2? Oh, 2.
I don't know. They're an average.
Okay.
I just use my own feet.
Yeah, okay.
But your hands were like, wow, I need to get that. And I used it for the main
And nobody has complained about bare hands. Nobody said glove up those hands. I mean, that's disgusting.
Yeah, if you put shoes on, you're going to have to put on gloves too.
Why are they discriminating against feet?
I've never understood it.
Let those feet be free.
Yeah. I love being in the presence of the barefoot. It just feels right.
It's the Draftsmen Show. Yeah.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Draftsmen podcast. I'm Stan Prokopenko, created Proko.
I'm Marshall Vandruff. I'm an art instructor. Hi, Stan.
Hey, Marshall.
Haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, this time for real.
What is happening?
Allergy season.
So you suffer from allergies?
Hear that?
Oh, the listeners are going to love that.
Oh, yeah. It's like eating.
Tell me more.
Well,
Is allergy season in July?
It's, yeah, for me it's summertime, and then sometimes I get a shorter one during the winter.
Yeah.
I'm allergic to canyon pollen.
And you live near the canyon?
Yes.
So you've got an abundance of opportunities to be allergic.
Yeah, that's great.
Well,
allergies are the most debilitating thing for me. I'm really tired. I can't focus. I have very little motivation. I just want to sit down and like sleep.
What will come of this?
Not right now. I'm fine. My allergies are not bad right now. I'm talking about when I get bad allergies. That's what happens. I just don't want to do anything.
So should we have people put in the comments whether they have allergies or not? And
I don't know if that is worth.
That's the pinned comment.
Yeah.
Well, we've exhausted one topic at the beginning of our conversation. Here we are.
Here we are, Marshall. This episode's going to be about portfolios. And if you guys love Marshall's voice, which so many of you have been commenting about, you're in for a treat.
Are we?
Yeah, because this is your episode.
How?
I have like very little to say about this.
Okay. Okay.
I thought that was your way of introducing the anatomical skull song.
Yeah, I thought you were going to have like play a song.
You thought that was a promo?
No, the song the extended version.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
That is another thing. Maybe we'll say that for next episode. Marshall wrote the anatomical skull song.
I wrote the anatomical skull
let's save
song.
that for later.
Let's do.
They'll have enough of your voice in this one. The only portfolio I've ever put together was for CalArts, which is one of the top animation schools. And my portfolio consisted almost entirely of Bridgman studies.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, which makes completely no sense when you're applying for an animation program. So that's why I think they shouldn't trust me for portfolio advice.
I have opinions about that, but we already went over those.
Yeah.
Okay. The extent of your portfolio experience, showing your portfolio to get a job, was showing Bridgman work to get into an animation school.
Yeah. I was young.
Yeah.
I'm still young and stupid.
Okay.
However, I do have experience hiring people, and I've looked at hundreds of portfolios, so I can talk a little bit about what I look for. But
That is the thing I'm going to zero in on.
Okay.
That's why I want to talk, is that people think that the portfolio is about me and the portfolio is about the client's needs.
Okay.
Okay. My first portfolio came out of being in the junior college, and I had 3 separate styles. I had a kind of cartoon style, I had a rendering style, I had another style that was surreal and had a whole bunch of developed pencil work, and I had some other styles in there too. And I figured that if I were to show my portfolio to potential employers to tell them, look, I can do all sorts of things, they would be impressed. And sure enough, when I showed my portfolio, people said, good, this is good. Yeah, you're versatile. I got compliments galore, but I did not get jobs, or I got very few jobs. And then someone explained to me that the portfolio is so that the client who has a need to solve a problem, that is, they've got a job that needs to be done, and they don't want to look at you and admire at how versatile you are, unless they're hiring you for a versatile position. But that's another thing. Typically, what I found out is that most of the clients in the ad agencies in Orange County at the time, late 70s, early 80s, needed airbrush renderings of products. And so I made a separate portfolio that was specifically airbrush renderings of products, and those were the things that started to make money, and then more of the same kind of job started to happen as a result of that. Then I had a separate one for the pencil stuff, had a separate one for the cartooning stuff, which didn't turn into work anyway. So that was the first thing I learned, is to specialize if I'm going in where they've got a specific job and they need a specific time. For that, art directors are busy. Creative directors are busy. If they have to look at 50, 60, 100 portfolios, even if they have to look at 10 portfolios, the last thing they want to do is think about your personal life and about how versatile you are and whether your childhood was happy or not. The thing they care about is that is this person fit for the job that I am hiring them for? And then another thing that's very important is, can they do it on time and to spec? But their job is to look good for their client. Their job is to meet a deadline. And so when they bring you in, you can either make that easier for them or make that harder for them. And to get into the mindset of the client is the first thing.
Yeah. That's when you know exactly what they want, though, right?
There is another issue, is that before showing a portfolio, it is wise to research. You should find out who hires the kind of work you do, and then instead of wasting all that energy showing everybody, aim where you're going to show your work to people who really do need that. That is the responsibility of the artist, the illustrator, the graphic designer, whoever it is trying to get the work, is to find out who you are showing this to. Also, if you know other people who've worked for that client, it's great to know who to show your work to. I did tons of jobs for Ingram Micro. And Ingram Micro, I got in there because one of my former students, Peter Sanchez, hired me to do some monsters for them. And then that led to another job with another art director and another art director. And then every time they bring in a new art director, you didn't even have to show your portfolio anymore, because one art director would say we use Marshall for that. And you would also start to find out that certain art directors would be on campaigns that needed more of a particular kind of style. And so you'd end up saying, I'd like to show over at this department, I'd like to show this. So again, all of the subtext of what I'm saying is that students often think the portfolio is about me. It is about you in that it shows your skills. But remember, the only reason it exists is because it's about them, and they need to solve a problem and get a picture done on time. And you are showing them, I can do this.
So instead of having one portfolio that you show to everyone, you need to tailor your portfolio for each client.
And it was so hard to do that. It was so hard to do that because I was hungry for compliments. It's like, I don't just do that. I want you to see that I also do this, and I want you to see it. And so there's this restraining. And another friend said, they'll find that out if you really want compliments. As they get to know you, they will find that out. And there's some other stories about that,
Sure.
of introducing other styles later. That's point one. I don't know whether I'm done with it.
I feel like, as you say that though, almost everybody does that, right? Where like pretty much everyone just has one portfolio. Because when I review portfolios or demo reels, a lot of people send me a link to their YouTube channel where they have their demo reel.
Okay, yes.
I've reviewed a lot of animation and like modeling and rigging jobs because those are the artists I hire for my videos. And I could just go to their YouTube channel and see what other videos they have on there. And usually they just have one demo reel. So they don't have a demo reel tailored to different types of jobs.
And that's good, clients. Right? That makes it so that you can look at it and see what they do in a matter of...
I don't know. Based on what you're saying, that's bad because they just have one reel that they're sending to everyone, right?
Well,
they're not tailoring it to me.
But they aren't sending it to everyone, though.
They're not?
Right? I mean, they're sending it to people. If they're actually sending it to you and saying, look at my reel, they're doing that because they're assuming you are hiring for an animator or a rigger or somebody specific.
Yes.
Well, tell me how you feel about it. When you look at these reels, how long are they typically?
About a minute.
Yeah. And in a minute, you can make your decision real quickly whether you like it or not.
Yeah, because it's like their highlights. It's their best stuff. And they just put like little clips of all these different projects.
Yeah.
I have gotten some where people sent me like a demo reel and then like a finished project that they worked on. And it's a few minutes of like a full-on story. And that helps. The more I could see, the better. Because sometimes when it's just a demo reel and it's like a minute of just their best stuff, I'll know if it's bad right away, like if it doesn't fit. But sometimes I'm like, that could work, but I'd like to see more. I want a better idea of this person. That's when I start researching and I go to like the social media accounts, and that's pretty easy to find nowadays.
Well, we are opening up something here.
Yeah. So that, be careful with that.
I'm not sure we should segue into that or save that for later.
We can save that. You're leading this one. That's fine.
We'll segue into it for a minute or two.
Okay.
Do you know how much your social media account and your internet presence is a part of the permanent historic record?
Yes.
And that every potential opportunity in your life, if you are dealing with responsible people, that they will be aware of it?
Sometimes you get lucky.
How?
Like MySpace accidentally deleted the first like 10 years of everything that they ever had on MySpace.
I see.
And so that doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. So you get lucky.
Yeah. I have seen students' lives almost ruined.
Really?
Yeah, because of stuff they posted on Facebook. And then everybody knows that they posted that on Facebook. And because they posted it on that Facebook, they get branded as the person who's out to get somebody else or whatever else. There's a vindictive spirit. Those kinds of things can follow you for years. Yeah, in fact, we saw some of this even happen in the last year with a feud between people. So yeah, that's another thing is that if there's a lot at stake, it may be that if somebody's hiring you for a single job, and it's going to be a 1-week thing, and they're going to pay you a certain amount of money, and they're never going to hire you again. They may not care, but if they're hiring you for a longer-term relationship, that's where those kinds of things become important. Now, here's something that I think's going on different between what you're observing, where you're saying that they'll send you a 1-minute reel, and it may be that you want to see more, and that they are sending something that's appropriate to what you hire for.
Yeah.
Is that you are looking at the work of people who are professionals or soon to be professionals. And I'm spending much more of my time with students, some of whom are just out of high school, who are preparing for a career, and so they don't yet know how this works. And so that process of getting your training, and then somewhere 2, 3, 4, 5 years into that, really saying, I've got enough of my training, I've got to get my work done now. How do I present myself to clients? And it's woefully lacking in most educational institutions. It seems to happen better with people who just say, I'm going to do this on my own, and they figure I've got to make money for it. And so they're thinking about, how am I going to get anybody to hire me for this right away? Whereas when you're in the safe environment of a place where you are paying them to teach you, your energy is typically not, how can I get them to pay me? And that's the energy that you shift toward for a portfolio. That's why a portfolio exists. I have a slideshow that explains a career does not happen until you've had jobs. And jobs do not happen until you have two things: a portfolio and connections, people to show it to. And portfolios do not happen until you have skills. And skills do not happen until you have training. And training is why we are in this class, so that there is a logical progression to get the career.
You know, the crazy thing, though, that I've observed is that your ability to get a job starts at that step one, though, in that class.
It sure does. How are you thinking?
I'm thinking of, I think it's something like half of the freelancers that I have working for me right now have been recommended by you.
Yeah. And they've been good people, right?
Yeah, and you recommended them to me because of how well they did in your class.
Yeah.
The Marshall bump.
The Marshall bump. I mean, I trust you, and your word has never been wrong yet.
And I don't want it to be. That's very important to me.
And so when you recommend someone to me, I take it very seriously. And so I'm sure that students don't realize how important their behavior in classes and how well they do on their projects is, how much it's going to affect their career.
Networking begins in the classroom. Again, I remember years ago that there was an animation studio that needed an animator. They needed an animator in this week. And this was in the late 90s. And I had a few students who were such good animators. I said, they should be the ones. They said, well, they're already employed, which is often what happens, is the good students get employed pretty quickly. And then I was hesitating, and I was thinking, should I recommend this one guy? And I mentioned him because he was one of the best animators of the bunch. But he had a bad reputation. He's a conceited guy, kind of gave everybody grief. But I mentioned him, and they said, yeah, we've already interviewed him. And we didn't like him. So what I think a number of students do not recognize is that the arena of networking begins when you're a freshman. It begins it begins even when you're in high school.
Yeah.
Because when you're in high school and in junior high, you're making relationships that you don't know that some of these relationships aren't going to be your most important employers. And it especially happens with this wonderful irony that the people who were below you in their social status will be above you in their social status, and that they will be the ones who give you your career and hire you. So that's just kind of the logic behind the maxim of, I try to look at every student as a future employer of me. It's got all sorts of problems, but yeah, that is where the networking begins, is in a classroom.
Yeah. And if you do have a bad reputation, you can start over, kind of. Right? You could change your ways, and you can turn things around.
Yeah.
So
sometimes you have to go to another environment to do it.
Yeah.
If it was local enough to where the breach, again, I have stories, but they're dangerous to tell. If the breach is really local, you can say, look, if I just get into another environment, and I will change my energy. But I have seen some people change their energy in this environment, and everybody acknowledges. It's why community, it's one important reason why community exists, is to keep us away from our worst impulses. And so, yeah, but I have, again, lots of stories of that kind of thing. Let's get back to the main point. The main point is that it's not just a portfolio. Portfolios are representatives of skills. We knew of a guy who got jobs with someone else's portfolio. He did this. This was back when we were students. We thought, well, what happens when he can't do the work?
Yeah.
And this was a guy who had that vibe of, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. I got the job.
How much
True,
worse?
fake it till you make it.
Yes.
Okay, but how far were his skills from the portfolio he was showing?
I don't even remember.
Was it like close.
I didn't know him closely, but we know he was in our environment, but I didn't know him closely. But he was one of those people. That's the kind of person who should become a salesperson, except that I wouldn't trust them to be ethical. Yeah, but
the best
their
salespeople aren't liars.
The thing is, his energy goes toward he feels accomplished in having made the sale, more than he feels accomplished in having done the work. So
I don't know if that makes him a good salesperson.
Yeah, well, yes, not a salesperson I want as a rep.
Right.
Yeah. So let's take a moment with the specialization and diversity thing. If you're going into a big company, chances are you're going to have to specialize because you will play one role typically, especially on entry level. But if you're going into a small company where it's just one or two or three people, that was the way it was with you, right? When you were starting out, you wanted someone who could do cameras and sound and editing and deal with people and everything else.
I was looking for well-rounded people that just had a general good understanding of technology, so they can handle cameras and also just be able to learn quickly. Those were the main things I was looking for. I didn't really care that they didn't know. Like Sean, I hired Sean. He was my second editor. He didn't know how to use Premiere. He never used Premiere before, and I hired him as my editor. And Premiere was what I was using, but I hired him because I knew he could learn it quickly, and it took him a few weeks, and he got it down. He was better than me at it after that. So it's about the person, not necessarily about their exact skills when you're going into a startup.
Absolutely, I think that too. I had a student who barely knew Premiere, and he gave me 100 hours of editing for the Nomen DVD, and I credited him on the Nomen DVD, and he barely knew it, but he was so enjoyable to work with. That those 100 hours were just looking forward to hanging out and working in Premiere, and whenever he couldn't, whenever he didn't know how to solve a problem, all you got to do is give him 24 hours, and he's going to be able to come back and solve that problem on the next round. Yeah. Somebody said that you never get hired by a company. You get hired by people in the company, and that's why relationships are at least as big a part as the portfolio. But there's another thing about portfolios. Almost nobody hires us to do something that we haven't done before. They want to know that under the pressure of a deadline, under the pressure, especially early jobs, when you get these first jobs and your whole family is kind of freaking out with you, that you've got a deadline, you got to get this, and it's got to be up to that level. There's a surge of energy, emergency energy, that if you do not make this deadline, you damage your reputation. And clients like to know that you didn't just do it once. They also like to know that you didn't just do it in school, presumably in a nurturing environment. They want to know that you've done it a number of times and that you've done it fast. And that way they feel more secure that they're hiring you for their security, that I don't have to worry about them, they'll get the job done. So it helps to have that. It helps to have a portfolio that proves you can do it, and you can do it again, and you can do it again, and it was not lucky. But the maxim in my time, when I say my time, the late 70s and early 80s, for portfolios, because we did not have the internet, printing things was really expensive. I mean, you could spend up to $100 a print to get a color print of something. So they were investments. We were also told, make them matted with 2 inches gray matte, 2 inches gray matte, 3 inches at the bottom, all consistent with the same color matte so that it looks professional. And there was something to that. I remember asking Mr. McFadden, why is that important if the artwork is really good? He says, why is it important for you to wear clean underwear? So there was the thing about make it so that the presentation.
This was your art teacher?
Yes.
This is when you were in college?
When I was 18, 19 years old. But we used to carry around a physical portfolio that might have originals or prints in there, and the maxim was have 12 pieces, because 12 pieces is enough for a creative director to flip through it quickly and say, yeah, go show this to Sam, the art director. And then you've proven your point. 24 pieces takes too long, but I got some of my most lucrative jobs with 3 pieces. In fact, let me tell this story. The presentation is nice. to have a good presentation, but it is not the most important thing. Bruce Mayo used to tell me they got some of their biggest campaigns with stuff they did with a rollerball on a restaurant napkin. And they'd show that to the client. And it's like, oh, that's just great. And so they'd sell the idea. And I went into an agency in the 1980s that I was doing airbrush rendering for. And Dennis and Travis, the two art directors, said, we need someone who does cartoons, caricatures, like we're going to do Joey Suzu. I said, who's Joey Suzu? They said, oh, he's a guy on TV, and he would pitch. He was like a sleazy car salesman type. I didn't have TV, so I didn't know anything about it. And they showed me a commercial of this guy, and they said, do you know anybody who does this kind of thing? And I happened to have in my back pocket 3 35 millimeter slides in a plastic frame, and I gave them to Dennis, and Dennis holds them up to the fluorescent light and says, yeah, you're our guy. You can do this. And they hired me to do Joe Isuzu, and they hired me over and over for 2 or 3 years to do Joe Isuzu. And I only did one picture of his face, but we used stat cameras back then and copy machines to splice it in and airbrush over the top of it. I did him skiing. I did him waving his hat, all of these things for automobile dealerships. And it was really lucrative, and I got it on 3 35 millimeter slides. They already knew that I could meet the deadlines. Now what they cared about is, can you do this style? And it means it saves them time having to look through a whole bunch of portfolios. So referrals are another thing. You refer your friends. You want to do good networking. Refer your friends to lucrative jobs, and they will love you forever.
They'll remember.
Yeah. How are we doing on this?
It's great. You're doing amazing, Marshall.
Oh, well, thank you.
I want to go put together a portfolio.
Okay,
3 millimeter
Have
slide.
Marshall judge your portfolio.
Have Marshall judge my... Yeah, Marshall, maybe I could dig up my CalArts portfolio and have you judge it. I don't know if I think I might have... I had to send like the original sketchbook or something.
Hi, this is Marshall. If you are in California in the Orange County area and you want to study with me, I'm teaching composition for artists at my favorite community college on Thursday nights starting August 22nd. I designed this class to bring out the best of your creativity, and it has helped many students find their skills in composing pictures. To register, go to fullcall.edu. That's fullcol.edu. The class is Art 222, Composition for Artists, taught by Marshall Vandruff. Do you know who John Schindehette is?
Yeah, of course.
For those of you who don't know who John Schindehette is, he was the creative director for Wizards of the Coast for a number of years, and he hired out 10,000 works of art a year. 10,000 illustrators.
How can you go
illustrations
through that,
a year? He had about 300 to 400 illustrators that were supplying for him constantly.
Okay.
And John was very generous with students, explaining to them how you show portfolios. I had him as a guest in my class a couple times, and we'd ask, the question to ask a guy like that is somebody who hires as much art as you do, what would you like students to know? And the first thing he said was, you would not believe how many people send me their work, and it's good work, and I'd hire them, and they don't include any way to get hold of them.
What? No, that can't be true anymore.
Now, hang on. I'm not done with this.
Okay, sorry.
My response was, John, I would believe how many, because the only thing as a teacher that I think I'm really a hard ass about is that you must put your name on the project, on the file name so that it shows up when you're searching it on the hard drive, and in the pixels so that when it shows up with those gobbledygook titles when you download them from Facebook, you still have your name embedded into the pixels. But that's one of the first lessons to learn, is make it, again, I think the reason why students don't do it is that they forget what the purpose of this is. You're trying to get them to hire you. But if they want to hire you, and they don't know how to get hold of you, you haven't thought that through. And that's where the energy has got to go. It's to serve the client.
So are you talking about, like, sometimes your individual drawings or paintings from your portfolio could get separated, and some art director might see that one drawing and not the resume that came with it? Because the resume usually has contact information on it, right?
And also, Minnie, an art director and creative director, says, I never even look at the resume. I just
But
look
don't
at the
they
work.
know to look at it to contact for contact
But
information?
what about when you do a piece that goes viral? What about when you do a piece that gets out there and there's a million people who've seen it and they say, this is wonderful, and there's no name on it, and so it just becomes a part of the culture, and then you're scrambling behind saying, hey, I remember I was the one that did that. It should always have your name and your contact number, or at least your name if you got a unique name, and your contact number on
I feel
the
like
image.
this problem is not a problem anymore.
The reason you feel that this problem is not a problem anymore is because you are in a professional world where everybody has already been vetted by the time they get to you. And again, I am in a student world where students don't seem to think about this, and they have to be held accountable. You got to have your name on it. Well, this was a long.
Wait, hold on. I don't want to stop. This is interesting.
Okay, keep it going.
When let's say a student puts his work out there on social media and it goes viral, you can find out who did that original piece very easily.
How?
A reverse image search on Google, or there's other websites where you could search for them.
You are correct.
I mean, people today know how to find people, how to research on the internet.
You are correct. So let me tell you why this is still an issue. Because knowing art directors, as I have.
Okay, so they're all old.
No. They are busy.
Yeah, okay, of course.
And I remember John Deerstein told me once that I watched art directors look at portfolios. I watched in a game company, I watched scores of portfolios go through that game company. And if there's anything like that you put in the CD back then and it's not going to load quickly, it's just forget about it. That they label it wrong. One of the ways of vetting is to say, I don't have time to look up this person because I've got another 100 people who want to showcase their work for me.
But if you saw their work online because it went viral, they're not necessarily applying for the job. Yeah. If you saw them and you said, oh my God, that's perfect, that's the guy I want to hire, that means you don't want to look at the other 100 because you've already found the one.
You are correct.
And then you could spend a few minutes searching who this is instead of looking through the other 100.
If you say, that's perfect, that's the one I want to hire. If you say, that's pretty good, I could use that, then you don't get it.
Okay, so you're saying every piece you post on social media, you got to put your contact information on the drawing and painting? No one's going to do that.
If it's something that is to represent your skills, why not?
But everything represents your skills, right? Every drawing or painting you put out there.
Yeah, let's take the other side.
I don't know, Marshall. I don't think people are going to actually do this. And I wouldn't recommend they post on Instagram with all their contact information. I would, if I saw someone doing that, every one of their social posts has all their contact information.
Now we're talking
I'd look at them like, what the hell?
The other problem is to have a huge watermark that says, this is my property, copyright
That
me,
rubs me the wrong way.
Do not republish. Yes, that's the other extreme.
I don't want to even talk to this guy.
Yeah,
he's got issues. He's got other issues, but I don't even want to deal with him.
You're right.
He might be too protective of his work. Yeah.
But in the lower corner, to put a little thing with your name, little thing with your logo.
Your name, maybe. Yeah, your signature.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But contact information. My God.
Okay,
I would just laugh.
I feel like I overstated this, which
no, I think it was probably true in your day, pre-Instagram, pre-Facebook, pre-Google, even, really, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, but even today though, because when you download Facebook stuff, it doesn't have the titles become garbage. They become. They become cryptic stuff 000569866.
The titles? Oh, the title of
the
the image.
That's right.
File?
So there's that, which is why you should have your name in the pixels.
Yeah.
And
sign your work on the work. Yeah. My signature is legible. You can read my name.
It says Proko.
No. It says Proko Panko.
Oh, it says Proko.
My name
Panko.
is not Proko.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of your teaching. Okay.
I would hope you'd know that.
Yeah, I did know that. Sorry.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
That's why, because kind of for that reason is if somebody sees my work without it being connected to any of my accounts or anything, they could still read it and then type it into Google.
Yeah.
And then they'd find me.
And Proko is an unusual name too. I mean, there's not a lot of artists running around with
Yeah,
that
if
name.
my last name was Smith, I would put my first name in my signature as well.
Okay, well, there's the big difference between my time and now, which is that we've got the internet. Your portfolio. You don't need a portfolio anymore. Your web presence is your portfolio.
It should be. You should think about it as part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and having branding is a part of it. When you chose Proko, it simplified your name. It's immediately recognizable.
I didn't mean for it to simplify my name.
Yeah.
It was just my company name.
Your parents were okay that you were actually taking off the Penko part?
I didn't rename myself. I named my company.
Oh, so I'm still on that
You're
one.
still on.
Okay.
It wasn't intended to be like a nickname for myself.
Okay.
I was just like, what should I name my company? Proko.
Might as well legally change it now.
No, not legally. I like Prokopенko.
I do too. It gets confused with Prokofiev though when you type it
That's
into
true.
Google.
But so does Proko.
That's right. Yeah.
Proko just gets autocorrected, but to Prokofiev.
We'll deal with Prokofiev later.
I'll never be able to compete with him.
Yeah, good. You don't know Prokofiev's music, do you?
I do. You introduced me to it like 5. When did we meet?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you
6 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like one of the first things you told me about. Did you
And,
know Prokofiev?
Should I quiz you? Should I quiz you on which pieces you know?
No, I cannot name pieces.
Okay.
Even some of the best, like my favorite musicians, I can't name their songs.
Mm-hmm.
I just play the playlist and there it is. I don't look at the names.
This is the portfolio episode. We have been talking about portfolios, sort of.
No, what do you tell me? I think this has been very good.
I'm happy.
I've
with
learned
it.
a lot.
Yeah.
You probably haven't because you've given all the good advice.
We've talked about John Shindahedi. The first thing he said was you should make it so that I can get hold of you. And you wouldn't believe how many people don't do that. And my response is, yes, I would believe it. And I think with that group that he was speaking to, had the highest ratio of student to professional with the fastest trajectory that I have ever seen in my career. I think that they were the kind of students that we've got John Shindahedi here, and he's telling us how to do it, and he is the real world. Make sure that that's an action item, and that is something that's going to be part of my habit now, that I will always let people know how to get hold of me. But it doesn't. That's just one little thing.
So he was saying to put contact info on each piece in your portfolio.
No, he was just saying, let me know how to get hold of you.
Okay.
And that you wouldn't believe
And
how
what's
many
the
people
best
don't
way?
do that. To put your contact name contact information in a little thing in your
just
name,
asked you
in a lower corner. Yeah. Boy,
Okay. All right.
10 minutes of podcast
man.
time, and we have made this point. Marshall, you never need to talk about it the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I think that the fundamental diagnosis of the problem with portfolios is forgetting that it's for the person who's going to pay the money. There's no trouble getting people to take your money. To show, you had trouble with CalArts taking your money. They would not take your money because you had
They had
Bridgman
plenty of
portfolio.
other people who wanted
That's right. Yeah.
their money to be taken.
The hard thing is to get people to give you money. And so that's what this is, to say, look at what, in fact, the term masterpiece, I'm told, was a way of showing that you were a master, that you would be an apprentice, and then you get your level up to where you would master it, and then you do some pieces that show you're a master, and that's you're ready. We can trust you to give you money on this. And I think that when a student is putting together their portfolio, that having that as a mindset can help them make their own decisions as to whether it should go in. And then when you don't know what decision to make, that's where you research the client. That's where you see what have they hired before, and what are they likely to hire? Or if you're really creative, when the Pixar folks did an afternoon in about 2007 in LA at the I think it was the Directors Guild, they had a whole Saturday afternoon with Pixar, and the main question people ask is, how do you work at Pixar? They talked about how much time they spend on YouTube, and that they like looking at people's works to see what they like. And they say, when people show us portfolios, they're always showing us the stuff that we've already done. We're looking for stuff that's different from what we've done, which they may be, and they may be looking for it but not really willing to use it. That happens quite a bit. People say, show us something different, and you show it and they say, yeah, that's different, and don't use you.
Yeah, that's different for sure.
But if you're creative and there's a client that you want to work for, research the client and see if you can speculate their trajectory. And there may be the chance that you will be the person who can show them something. They say, we're looking for something that's this. We've been getting, sales are not as what we'd like them to be because our stuff isn't as edgy, our stuff isn't as whatever it is that your stuff happens. That's when you're committed to a client that you've cared about their work for years. You're looking at it. Maybe it also may be too lofty. It may be that one individual thinks they can do it, but those kind of things do happen. That when Disney, had Ub Iwerks, and the Disney look is essentially the Ub Iwerks look, and then Disney Animation as it went on is essentially all those people that he was that were.
Yeah, but that's rare.
It is rare. Yeah.
Right. Would you give that advice to kind of a general audience of students?
I wouldn't give it to someone who wants to work for Blizzard or Disney. Disney are going to say, good, we're going to steer this ship according to what you have to offer us. But I would give it to, remember, all of my students want to work for a few big clients, and Disney and Pixar and DreamWorks and Blizzard are always at the top of the list. I remember when Blizzard was a small game company. I remember when they were interviewing people that turned them down or that they turned down, and this was before World of Warcraft. And when you get into companies that you admire, but they are not yet big, then you're getting into an environment where you may make a bigger difference in the company. In fact, it's happened with Proko, right? I mean, you've got people around you that have been with you for a few years, and as you were growing, they've been influential on where you've gone, have they not?
I mean, of course, everybody adds an element of themselves into it. But what do you mean exactly?
Again, Disneyland, Herb Ryman, Disneyland was designed by Walt and Herb Ryman, or at least the initial design, in one night. Everybody knows who Walt Disney was. They don't. Do you know who Herb Ryman was?
No.
Look up Herb Ryman. Herb Ryman was a great illustrator, and he is the one who designed the layout of Disneyland, where you've got the hub and Adventureland and Tomorrowland and all that stuff.
Okay.
It's a few people when it's at its beginning stages that are going to have the biggest. Oh, I can think of a recent example. This is a great example. Cuphead. Because Cuphead was so... nobody was saying we've got to do more 2D animation that looks like the Fleischer Brothers stuff. Not Disney, Fleischer Brothers. Nobody was saying we've got to do that so it sells. So you got two brothers who love that style, and they've got a few people around them who happened to be their people, and they developed this incredible property. And then that first week or two that it was going, they were making, they were bringing in millions of dollars a week because everyone was so excited about, there's a whole other lesson in there, and that's to go back to the old stuff and revive it for the new stuff. But the other thing
in a new way.
Yes, in a new way. Oh, don't you love how it looks? Doesn't Cuphead look
I was obsessed
great?
with the look too. I never played it, but I was just watching YouTube videos of other people playing it because I loved how it looked.
Yeah, and they weren't the first ones to do that. The Squirrel Nut Zippers did that Stephen Foster music video where they used the Fleischer Brothers styles, and even the 1960s underground artists, Rick Griffin and Robert Crumb and that bunch, they were really enamored with the 1920s, 30s Fleischer Brothers stuff. But the point is that you are less likely to be in a big company and say, let's do a project that's 2D animation that looks 1930s and have it go through all the hoops to actually happen unless you're already in a position of great power at that company. But if you, because you're trying to steer the Titanic, but if you are in a small boat and you can say, look, there's a few of us, we think we can go in this way and do it quality enough to make it a hit. That's the kind of stuff that gets me excited. I love seeing that. It's just it's countercultural, and yet it's going to contribute to the culture.
Yeah, everybody at Proko contributes. I mean, we have meetings, we brainstorm, people's ideas get used. I'm not making all the decisions. I mean, John was the one that created 12 Days of Proko.
Was he?
Yeah, and that's like a big thing that we do every year now.
This is John Burchell.
Yeah.
Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Yes.
Yeah. John is the guy who does the funny ads that we start this podcast with. Right?
The memes?
Yeah, the memes.
He does the memes. Well, I mean, Sean did one of them, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think did John do all the other ones?
Yeah, John
did all the other.
John's been memeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, John's memeing.
But John did that Heineken one.
I think so. Yes. Yeah, he did the Heineken.
Yeah, that's my favorite one.
Because it's you.
Yeah.
But isn't it supposed to be Dos Equis?
Yeah, it's Dos Equis.
Oh, it's
It is Dos Equis. Oh, okay. So it's not Heineken, is it?
It's not Heineken.
Okay.
It's Dos Equis. Yeah, sorry, Dos Equis.
This episode is sponsored by Proko Drawing Lessons. If you want to learn how to draw, if you want to improve your knowledge of figure drawing and figure anatomy, look no further than Proko.com. There are hundreds of free lessons on our YouTube channel, but the premium courses over at Proko.com/store have more detailed videos and a lot of assignment demonstrations. Our anatomy course also includes 3D models of all the bones and muscles that you can rotate around and study from right in your browser. It has PDF ebooks for each lesson, so you can review the information whenever you want to come back to it. And if you're looking to save some money, we have several discounted package deals. Head over to Proko.com and start learning. All right, Marshall, so we're going to do a voicemail, a quick one.
Okay.
'Cause this has been a long episode. If you guys want to call in to leave a voicemail, the number's in the description. A lot of people have been asking if they're like international and it costs too much to call, how can they ask a question? You guys can record a WAV, an MP3, just record your audio and just email it to us. That'll work as well. Just email support@proko.com.
Yeah.
And if you can't speak English, I'm sorry.
Find a family member.
I'm sorry for now.
Find a family member
Yeah.
that can translate it.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have a segment sometime later in the podcast where we'll take emails and stuff like that. But right now we're just doing voice calls because we want to play the voice of the student.
Or debabbilize it and have your computer read it aloud at recording.
That'd be funny. If someone did that, that'd be very creative.
Sure.
We might have.
There is one that we might want to play just because of the fact that it's someone from India who apparently used a website to...
Oh, perfect. All right, let's do that one.
Yeah.
Here's someone being creative.
Yeah.
And because of their creativity, they got thrown right into the front.
That's it. They shifted in.
All right, here we go.
Hey, okay, I don't know if this works. I'm using some form of free call using a website. I'm from India, and I'm assuming this is the Proko podcast. Anyway, the question I want to ask is that besides, your drawing habits, I want to know whether what time you go to sleep and what kind of food you eat, and whether your sleeping routine and your
They're not using
health,
a computer.
No, it's definitely his voice. He's using some kind of website to forward the call, I think.
Oh.
But he wants to know what time I go to sleep and what kind of food I eat.
Yeah, he wants to know.
Damn it.
He wants to know you're eating and sleeping.
God damn it. Marshall, I'm really curious. What kind of food do you eat? I never see you eat.
No. I got to know why he wants to know this.
Because he feels
answer
sleepy.
the question.
He
I can
feels
give the whole
sleepy all the
lay
time.
He
down,
feels
but I wanna
sleepy
know.
when he does like a long day of art.
What, in other
Normal.
words, like maintenance, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
That's something to ask a nutritionist.
You know what I do?
I know.
Caffeine.
Hey, well, I will tell you something that's interesting about eating habits, because I just found this out in the last couple months. Some new research that has shown that if you fast for 12 hours and you do it regularly, that it has measurable health benefits.
I have
Intermittent
heard this.
fasting.
Yeah, I'm
it's
just
called.
getting in the habit now of I'm fasting 12 hours at 5-6 days a week.
Some people just naturally do that.
Yeah.
Brandon does that naturally, right? Like he doesn't eat breakfast. Sometimes he skips lunch and he just eats dinner. So that's like 24-hour fasting.
Yeah.
He'll eat for an hour, and then he won't eat for another 24 hours. Well, you don't do that extreme anymore, but you used to do that. You used to just eat once a day. See, I heard that, like when I was a kid, I heard that was really bad.
I did
just
too.
Eat once a day, and now they're saying it's good. I don't know what to believe anymore.
Every time there's new research, it seems like going to get. But yeah, I remember we used to be told that grazing was good, and so I grazed for years. I just eat whenever I was hungry. 15 times a day, just eat a little bit.
Like you would walk around the grassy field.
No. It was like little healthy snacks. Just,
is that what that
hungry.
means?
I'll just keep the hunger pangs away all the time.
I heard that eating causes cancer.
Oh well,
That's
then
the
there's
new
a solution.
Yeah.
The subject of sleeping habits does become relevant when you're on deadlines and you've got 24-hour and 36-hour shifts that you've got to get this thing done. There was a book called Freelance Forever by Marietta somebody. It came out in the late 70s, 80. I had it. I gave it to a student. Only one of my students in the last year or so has really pursued freelancing. And I gave it to her, even though it's a dated book, and it was before the internet. But she had some really good advice for people who have the freelance lifestyle, which is not regulated. It's emergency mode, and then feast and famine, have to meet the deadline, and then be without work for a while. And she had a part in there where she addressed sleep issues. I've opened up a document on what I know about sleep habits and meeting deadlines, and when you have to go for a long time.
You want to make that document public?
Yeah, I could do that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I was totally expecting you to say no, and then I was going to say, "Damn it, Marshall!"
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So I'll let you work out how to do it. But I can take everything. This is not stuff that is based on legitimate research. This is based on me and a few of my peers who all lived in the same area and made our living as freelancers, and what we learned to do to survive that kind of pressure.
Cool. The only thing I can offer is that when I don't want to feel sleepy, I just don't eat carbs.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just eat protein.
Yeah.
Protein and like a little bit of vegetables or something.
Yeah,
and
diet
that
is
doesn't
part
make
of it.
me sleepy.
Oh, another thing that is even worth mentioning here: do not start with caffeine.
God,
start with your.
You tell me now.
Yeah, no. I mean, I don't mean don't start with caffeine as a habit. I would like everybody to be addicted to caffeine. I love what the effect of it. It's a wonderful thing. But when I'm saying when you're on a long distance trek, when you're on a deadline that's intense, do not start out with a cup of coffee. Wait until the first wave of energy goes down and then let it kick you back. Otherwise, because you know how it works, when you keep using caffeine, it can really give you agitation, nervous issues that make everything worse. So the idea is don't bring a drug into it to start. Yeah. Bring it in when it's there specifically to deal with an issue, which is that I'm about to fall down. This is going to keep
Marshall's
me awake.
drug advice.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Marshall, you drug peddler.
I experimented with caffeine tens of thousands of times to know it. So that if I don't know how much you can extrapolate from what I know about the effects of caffeine to everything else.
Most people know.
I'll give it a try. I know people that I've got a 24-hour thing that I'm going to be on soon. So they start with a cup of coffee. That's a huge mistake. Start with a nap.
Start with a nap?
Yeah.
So when you wake up in the morning, take a nap.
That sounds good.
To get you going. Great advice.
Oh, we've opened up a whole other subject of sleep deprivation, the use of drugs, power naps, deadlines. I don't know.
I love your drug advice.
Yeah. Okay,
Start
we'll
with a
put it in a
nap when you wake
document.
up.
Spare all of this because this has been long.
I love this.
Okay, well, good.
Okay, well, I think we've gone too long. My thing this week is ending the episode. What's yours?
Let's do it. Let's end it.
All right. We got the same thing this week.
Yay.
All right. What's the question for the week?
Send both of you their portfolios. Everyone send your
Everyone
portfolio.
send your portfolio.
Everyone
Yeah,
send your
Marshall.
Yeah. No.
No.
Oh,
Send Marshall. Marshall, what's your email address?
no.
Portfolio review with Marshall Vandross.
Portfolio viewing horror stories.
There we go.
What's the worst that has happened when you've shown your portfolio?
Yeah, the worst reaction.
All right. Everyone, leave your portfolio viewing horror stories down below in the comments on YouTube.
And any successes are okay too, but the horror stories are always more interesting.
Yeah. anything portfolio related, just comment below.
It's easier to learn from failure.
Yeah. And I didn't talk about all the times that I showed my portfolio and I was so drenched in sweat out of nervousness.
Okay, great. All right. And please leave a 5-star rating on iTunes.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, guys.